Sorry about that. You
Should I
may
do it over
need to
again?
do it again. I
All right,
apologize.
here we go. Welcome to the November 19th, 2025 meeting of the Envision Needham Center Project Working Group. As a reminder, this meeting is being broadcast on the town's YouTube channel and also via Zoom, being recorded for publication, later viewing, and administrative purposes. I've not been notified that anyone else is recording the meeting, but if someone wishes to do so, please notify me, the chair. And we'll take a roll call attendance. Eileen Baker.
Here.
Ben Bolger is present. Lisa Elcock.
Here.
Liz Hay.
Here.
Kevin Keane.
Yeah.
Avery Newton.
Here.
Diane Nanny.
Here.
Paul O'Connor.
Here.
And Kara Susting.
Here.
Okay, we also have Margot.
Yep.
And Cassandra from Apex here tonight. Thank you for coming. The first order of business here, we had minutes, but the agenda doesn't say approve the minutes.
We'll do it for next.
We'll do it next time. Okay. So then the first agenda item is the block by block review of 3 alternative concept plans. This was asked of us of the select board. And so we're gonna go through them. Each panel again, like we had before with the current layout and go through each one. So I'll hand it.
Yeah, if you want to give it me.
Yeah, so I'll just say, I think this came from the suggestion of a member of the select board. Based on a different project we were doing, and I think we've looked at it block by block, comparing each one of the alternatives, but we haven't looked at each role plan as far as what the whole corridor would look like for each plan item to item. So I think one of the things that when we conferred with the select board, it was clear that they wanted the public to understand the details of each of the projects. And so we thought it would be useful to do a review of the role plan for each project separately, comparing it to existing conditions as opposed to comparing them all 4 together, which is what we did before. And as part of that, we just facilitated it with some.
You pretty much are.
We got the big pictures.
So, and I will be sharing the role plan on the computer screen, but if anyone here from.
But that's one.
It's facing.
It's me.
I'll get.
Michael Grice has entered the.
There you go.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, bottom of this.
Why don't we leave this one off for now, just because we can't see them both at the same time? Yeah, it's not focused.
And then I'll just have like the people. All right. So in the room, we have the 4-lane proposed road plan. On the screen, I have the existing conditions on the bottom and the 4-lane on the top. I'll just plan to go from west to east through the project limits. Please feel free to stop me at any time to ask questions or talk through anything.
Harrison, this is the same thing you've done. Yeah, so it's exactly the same thing, but I think what we thought would be useful is you kind of, that you see it sort of segmented to see it all as one continuous plan.
notes.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Same thing. Okay, so for the 4-lane alternative, or for all the alternatives, the project limits start slightly to the west of Linden Street and Washburn Avenue. You can see consistently throughout the project limits where identifying opportunities to provide curb extensions or curb bump outs wherever there is a crossing. So, this has the benefit of reducing crosswalk lengths, so the lengths that pedestrians are exposed to vehicular traffic for. It also clearly delineates where drivers or motorists are allowed to park. Per the, town guidelines, you're not supposed to park within, I think it's 25 feet of an intersection, but that's not clearly, you can see in the existing conditions. Here it is, clearly delineated, but in certain locations such as Maple Street, it's just kind of open pavement. And this is, this was recently paved, so. But having that physical infrastructure there does, ensure compliance in terms of where folks are parking. Moving easterly from there, you can see in the existing conditions, the pavement or the travel area widens from 1 lane west of Linden to 2 lanes east of Maple. And I know this recent paving is obscuring the existing conditions somewhat, but you can see it's a very long transition from that 1 lane to 2 lanes. So in the proposed 4-lane alternative, the 1 lane consistent travel lane width is held through Maple Street, allowing the sidewalk to be expanded on the south side of Great Plain Avenue without really impacting roadway capacity or the amount of parking. It's simply reducing kind of confusion on whether there are 2 travel lanes or 1.
Is that the same in all versions?
Yes.
All versions are the same in this section.
Yep. You can see for this segment that we're looking at, the proposed spaces are 2 less than the existing spaces. It goes from 13 down to 11. That is purely by ensuring adequate offsets from intersecting side streets and where people should be parking.
That's to accommodate the bump outs,
The bump outs ensure compliance with parking regulations that should be enforced.
So current parking spaces may conflict with,
Deviate
yes,
from that.
okay.
Yep.
They're
So
not
if-
legal.
Even with a wide sidewalk, you still have to do the bump outs, right? Okay. Yeah, so the advantage of the bump out, just from like a safety perspective, is that it allows the pedestrian to get, so if they're in line with the sidewalk. What will end up happening is the pedestrian stands there, and if there's a car here parked, they have a hard visibility when it comes to the people who are driving in the road. But if they're out on the bump out, both the car and the pedestrian can see each other, and so that's the safety feature of the bump out.
And in this case, it doesn't inhibit the movement from 1 into 2 as well. Like that movement is happening anyway, just enables visibility in the interim.
All right. So as Kevin mentioned, from Maple Street to the west, the 3 alternatives are identical. It's just from Maple going east is where the 4-lane starts to diverge from the other alternatives. So going from Maple easterly, if you're going eastbound, Great Plain Avenue, you can see immediately after the intersection, the roadway transitions from 1 travel lane to 2. All of the pavement markings that we're showing here and these flex posts in the center of the roadway on either side of the railroad crossing are in line with the quiet zone plans that would allow for the lack of, audible
Train horns.
train horns, yes. Part of the quiet zone plans are also bumping out the sidewalk on either side of the railroad crossing to accommodate, more infrastructure. They need pedestrian gates to come down to prevent people from crossing the tracks.
So right now we have if you look, when you drive by, the gate themselves are in the roadway, like they're basically in the road. And they're what's called a scissor gate, so they come out on either side. The new requirements are that you have to have two different stanchions, so you have to have enough space. And then you have to have enough space, they call it like an emergency egress, but so if a pedestrian got stuck in between the two gates, they can get out. So that's why the bump outs would be part of the quiet zone for this area, would be part of the quiet zone, not necessarily affiliated specifically with this project.
So this is like existing spaces 20 proposed, that's for both sides of the street, I'm assuming.
Yes.
right?
Let's see, you can see there are curb extensions proposed at each crossing location. We are also able to add 2 parking spaces in every alternative on Garden Street. Currently, you can see in the existing condition, there is on-street parking, but it starts quite far away from Great Plain Avenue, so just fitting in 2 spaces there really without changing anything else. Let's see, going westbound on Great Plain Avenue, you can see it transitions from 2 lanes down to 1. And those added pavement markings were also proposed as part of the bottleneck reduction project. Just, clearly indicating that merging condition.
They're existing today too.
Yeah.
Right, it happens.
They're
It just
were recently
happens.
installed.
Yeah. People are still very aggressive.
Yes.
This is.
No, this is Needham, they agree with that.
Yeah.
That's even better.
Yeah, this is
Really
Mella's.
All right, yeah, done, okay.
So between the 17 proposed spaces on Great Plain Avenue and then the 2 on Garden, overall in this area is 19 versus the existing 20.
And I'm assuming those bump outs that go up to Garden Street there are actually going to provide drivers a better view looking left. Because basically, they go out there now, but there may be cars parked. So now with the bump out, they can more safely nose out to see what's coming.
So you're saying people coming southbound
Yeah.
on Garden?
Yeah.
Garden, is that a one way the other, wait.
No, Garden is both directions.
Might be
Oh, it's
Glendon?
Glendon. I'm thinking Glendon.
That's fine.
Okay, and then to the east of the railroad tracks, you can see we stop short of Chapel Street. Just, reflecting existing conditions, and tying into the limits of the previous project. The majority of the previously reconstructed portion of Great Plain Avenue would remain untouched, and outside of the limits of the project in the 4-lane alternative. You can see that there are some impacts or proposed changes at the Dedham intersection. Specifically, this alternative, as well as the other 2 alternatives, propose eliminating the exclusive right turn lane from Dedham onto Great Plain Avenue. Right turn lanes are still accommodated. It's just of making those that are turning right be part of the signal system, as opposed to just yielding to pedestrians if there is someone crossing, but not being having to stop if there's a problem.
Margaret, if you were installing a slip lane now, is it required to be signalized or is it just best practice?
I don't think it's required, but there's certainly a safety benefit to signalizing it.
Possible to do an option that keeps the slip lane and like just to see what it's like? Is that an option? Like, we're not married to this, right? So I would be interested to see if there was an option to keep the slip lane with that turn
So
signal.
I think you can
Yeah.
within the limits of a project, you can do, whatever is allowed, it's allowable.
Okay.
I think again, we would have to talk about how to alter it so that it's a safer alternative,
Yeah.
because right now I think there's some challenges with it. And then I imagine that would also impact some of the traffic modeling, because you're now controlling that. You're not comparing it to existing conditions, because right now it's an unsignalized turn, whereas now it has to follow the same traffic patterns that it would under this particular condition.
I'll also say this proposed expansion of the sidewalk is really the main opportunity in the 4-lane alternative to have a public area for dining or seating or other uses. So just to keep that in mind.
It would also limit your ability to, I know we've talked about, it probably depends on which alternative. But in other alternatives where they add parking on Dedham Ave on the side where common room is, it would limit your ability to add parking there.
This scenario.
A slip lane.
The slip
That's
lane.
the slip lane,
Yeah.
keep
Right,
the
why didn't
conditions
have it there?
similar
But
to
why
the
didn't you
thing.
add parking
Yeah, but that
there
doesn't have
if
it
you're
either.
not doing a slip lane on the 4-lane anyway? Do you know what I
We're
mean?
keeping the 2 lanes. on Dedham Ave.
There's no space to add a parking spot because you have 2 lanes going into the intersection, but in the other alternatives, there's only 1. So
Right,
there's
but
some
why
space
did
to
you
add
do it that way cause we wanted to keep 4 lanes on Great Plain. I'm just curious, cause I know you guys were advocating.
So
for the
can I-
Dedham Avenue
I just want to
spots.
be clear on this, because
Okay.
when you drive it, even if you maintain this, this is still a one lane road. So if you look at existing conditions, how it's designed, this is designed to have input into only 1 lane, not into 2 lanes. So even if you kept it, it's designed to have 1 lane down Great Plain Ave on this.
They're talking
With
about over
the-
here.
Right, that's not what I'm talking about, cause
Okay.
you guys were saying you were gonna add spots here in
So
the other ones, but you didn't, I was just asking why you didn't do it for the 4-lane.
Oh, because you have
plan,
to
'cause it's
keep 2
different.
lanes here. If you take away a lane, then that provides space for parking, but if you don't take away the lane, there's no additional space for parking.
Right, but why are
So-
you?
we have the ability to have 2 left turning lanes on Dedham Avenue in this alternative, because there are 2 receiving lanes. There are 2 through lanes on Great Plain Avenue, so
Okay, so
2
you
people
can
can be
go-
making a left at once.
Okay.
So
Oh.
that's the
That's
main
actually
reason.
relatively
that
new,
we-
that
Yeah.
rightmost lane only, I took it on my way here, like the rightmost lane is now allowing the left turn too.
Okay.
Yeah, so and that's why the operations on this.
Gotcha.
And I presume that you're gonna have a crosswalk in that red area. So if you're going either from the common area to the stores there or vice versa, it's going to be a lot cleaner because you'll walk up the sidewalk there and then go straight over as opposed to
Absolutely.
trying to dance around those intersections.
Absolutely, yeah. So the crossing length, to your point, if you're coming from the common room and going to the town common, instead of having to cross that lane and then go through the intersection, you just have that one crossing movement. And it's all at a fully stopped, like all drivers are stopped when you're crossing.
Sorry, not to beat a dead horse, just to come back to the slip lane option, is it possible to make an option with a slip lane so that when we do bring it to the public, we can get the feedback from them as to whether or not it's more important for them to have the slip lane or it's more important for them to have the outdoor dining?
Yeah, I mean, I think
I would say, I think the slip lane's really dangerous. I'm kind of amazed it was allowed to be built. You come out of the corner around here by Little Spoon, and it's a blind turn. You go step into the street, you don't know if a car's coming.
Right, but they could do the slip lane, they were saying, with the proper traffic signals.
correct,
Make
and
it
then the
safe.
pedestrian phase
Yeah.
would then be extended, so it would stop traffic. It'll have an impact on traffic.
Okay, but I'm just asking if it's possible to show an option that has it and then we can be able to give that to the public to decide what's more important to them.
We have gotten letters where people were
Yeah.
concerned about the slip lane.
What's the advantage of the slip lane?
About keeping it or taking it away.
Keeping it.
They
So
want to keep it.
I'll say we've also.
They're in the letters that went, so.
That's correct. When we did this project in 2021, we received letters concerned about families crossing that and the safety of it as well. So again, I think we'd have to, when we initially proposed this, that was what I did that we got no feedback on as far as negative.
Right.
Which is why it was kept in all three alternatives. I think we haven't asked Apex to look into it, so I think we really would have to look into the actual safety of it to be able to answer your question.
That's fine. I'm
And I
just
think that's
asking
what
it,
we
all.
need to be able to indicate.
Just one more item on this intersection. You can see southbound on Dedham in this option, we're able to add 3 spaces by extending the existing parking lane up by about 60 feet. You can see that's enabled by the curb extension and making sure that those that are turning right are going specifically to the travel lane and not into that parking area.
And it does cut the sidewalk a bit, right?
Slightly, yes. You can see in the existing condition, the sidewalk bumps out ever so slightly, so it would just be kind of extending the existing width, south of that.
And I just want to reemphasize, you can see in this the existing condition that the slip lane was designed to enter into 1 lane of traffic, not the 2 lanes of traffic.
Why are they taking away the traffic lane?
Karis, do you want to speak to, I know this was part of the beta plan as well, so Great Plain Avenue eastbound.
So I think the main reason was, one was the sidewalk was identified as one of the business owners identified of the sidewalk looking for some extension as far as the ability to have, outdoor dining or seating of some kind. I do know one of the goals of the initial project, the goal that was given to us in 2021 was trying to find ways to add space to the sidewalk, and this is a relatively easy way of doing it. And if you look at how it's designed currently, what you're doing in a very short period of space is you're going from 1 lane to 2 lanes back to 1 lane. There's no real capacity that you're adding there that would help congestion or help traffic flow. So there's no net benefit to having the additional lane in that particular intersection from a traffic flow or congestion perspective.
Opinion. I was just gonna say that. Also, I actually gone out there and stood there and watched traffic cross that, either come around the corner or come straight across. And the way it exists right now, that the cars that turn to the right go right to the yellow line. In other words, they move into that left-hand lane naturally. And the ones that come straight across just naturally just follow that line. And I was out there for probably about 20 minutes watching multiple light changes. There wasn't a single car that actually even gravitated towards where basically it's the Sweet Basil, Jersey barriers. Because there's no reason to go there. When you
Unless you're
turn-
parking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and that's right. And with this configuration, it allows additional parking, greater safety for the people on the side.
It also seems to make sense to ask to go from 2 lanes to 1 at a light and not,
Yeah.
right, you're doing it in the middle of the
Absolutely.
street where there's people and there's cars. It always feels more dangerous watching people take those 2 lanes, because they know they're going down to 1 as soon as they hit.
They're trying to edge ahead of
Yeah,
someone
they're all
else.
trying to do it, so why not do it at the light
Yeah.
where it's controlled?
Yeah, and they come straight into the lane that's basically being used as a single lane all the time.
And if the goal is to get the intersections that are uncontrolled down to a single lane of traffic, you would have to make that choice, you're correct, either at that light or halfway through that block, which would give you a very small amount of space to spread out and then come back in.
So that turn, I know you guys said it can happen, but people are still not convinced that.
So I think one
Is
of
there
the,
something we could do to like?
so we
help
talked,
people understand that?
we talked to the fire department and we're gonna do some cone mock-ups. I think one of the challenges, and I know for myself, is that what they're doing is they're standing here and they're trying to imagine as if all of this space was filled in. But that's not what we're doing. We're actually pushing that curb line back to make that turn. So I think that's what's making it hard to visualize, is because you're actually gonna be traveling where there's currently curb and sidewalk. And so it feels like, if you look at this turn, feels really tight, whereas we're actually pulling back that island. And I think that's making it challenging. It also makes it challenging to pilot, right? Because we can't just
Yeah.
lay out cones to make that corner in the existing place because you literally would have to go up on curb. So we're gonna do a mock-up probably in the DeFazio parking lot and run a bus and run the fire department through that as well.
If you can film that and show it to the public, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
But even looking
At
at
a
that, it's
level,
so hard
yeah.
for me to wrap my head around
Yeah.
it, so.
I just have a question, if there is a difference, what is it between the 4-lane and the hybrid? Coming off of Dedham Ave where the slip line would have been? Are they exactly the same? When you take the right
They're
onto Great
very
Plain?
similar.
The turn movements are different.
They're close, but it looks like there's no crosswalk. in the
So-
4-lane, but then there is, at least it's shown in the hybrid.
Trying to,
Right,
Yeah.
this is missing.
so you can
Is that
see
right?
because
Oh,
the
yeah. Left
4-lane,
from the right was eliminated.
because
This
the
one
4-lane has 2 westbound travel lanes.
Yeah, just a new signal.
Sorry.
It's like left, straight.
Sorry, I just wanted to, we have, at least one person participating fully remotely, and also people watching, just if we can.
Yeah,
All right,
I'm.
yeah.
Cross chatter does, make it hard, yep.
Okay.
So, Avery, I don't know if you already kind of explained the situation, but in the 4-lane, there are 2 westbound travel lanes on Great Plain Avenue at that intersection, whereas in the hybrid alternative, there's only 1. So the curb line on Great Plain Avenue is further north in the hybrid alternative than it is in the 4-lane alternative.
Okay, and the same thing that, Karis just explained. The bump out moves in. and you take the
Exactly.
right, okay.
Yep.
Off of, yes, okay, off of Highland onto Great Plain. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Pull out questions.
Yeah, so all right, we've kind of done the whole corridor, and then,
This is from
Diane has a question.
Oh, yeah.
Head down.
Go ahead.
I'm just looking at the hybrid. Is that going to be a lit intersection for the people crossing on those crosswalks?
A lit, like pedestrian lighting?
Yes, no, like, where they can stop the traffic so they can actually cross the street. Like,
which intersection are you referring to?
Right there, done that.
where exactly with Dedham Ave, because with the slip lanes coming out and the trucks, cars will be making that right-hand turn and it's
So-
bumped further back.
Yeah, all traffic would be stopped when pedestrians are crossing.
Okay, perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm just gonna go back to existing conditions, for the 4-lane comparison. So, you can also see just going down to Pickering because we're having that merge, for eastbound traffic at the intersection instead of in its current location. The unsignalized crosswalk at Pickering is substantially shorter, than in the existing condition. There is also, similar to at the western end of the project limits, there's this, kind of unmarked, long, transition from 1 lane to 2 lanes in the existing condition. In the proposed 4-lane condition, the consistent 1 lane width would be extended to Pickering, at which point we would immediately go from 1 lane to 2 lanes, for westbound. In this alternative, as well as the other 2, we're proposing a new crosswalk, in front of the Y and at the church, because there was an identified desire line there where people would like to cross. So that is shown here. And then there are, slight curb extension shown at Warren Street, as well. Especially for that southwest corner, which is kind of the largest radius in the existing condition.
Question, so on the north side, when you turn from Great Plain going west onto Pickering, you have a bump out as well. Is that just a general feature because it doesn't, there's no crosswalk there, but it almost seems like it's inviting people to cross the street because they see it's there.
Crossing Great
Right,
Plain.
like that, yeah. Does that bump out sort of take, is it like just to help get better vision or why is it there?
It's reducing the speed of turning vehicles, preventing people from going from one to 2 lanes of travel until after the crosswalk at the intersection. And then preventing, illegal U-turns on Great Plain Ave simply because there's space to do so.
Never happens.
Every single day.
I've heard otherwise.
Every single day.
Okay, no.
It just kind of enforces people to do the right
Yeah.
thing.
I have one question before we take this off. There was the thought, it wasn't my idea, but there was the thought that in this scenario, you can put a space back here. I don't know the distance about legality of how far away from the intersection, but the thought that maybe the crosswalk could be further up in this scenario, and you could have, this is retail. There
Yeah,
could be some parking putbacks.
so
It's
that.
been thrown out there before.
Yeah, we had, the stop line is dictated by the turning movements for a fire truck. So we want to make sure that a fire truck can make that movement without hitting a stopped vehicle
Yeah.
behind the stop line.
So the
Okay.
taking a right.
Yeah.
So there was a reason
Yeah.
why it was not, why it's there and not for.
Yeah, and then, of course, we don't want parked vehicles ahead of the stop line, like within the intersection limits. Any other questions on this before we go to the hybrid?
Just so clear, so with because I know, the discussion was about the fact that in front of Needham Music, that we would lose a space or two. And does that lose 2 spaces or 1, you know?
So you're saying on the north side of Great Plain Avenue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Music is,
Yeah.
it's great.
Where your person is here.
Paul, it was your idea, that you're the one that said
I
it.
think it's 2.
That was you, that.
It looks like
that's-
about 2.
I just remembered it was you.
Yeah. It looks like 2 spaces. I will say overall, from Dedham to Pickering, the number of spaces is held constant, but I think we're adding some on the south side.
But I was gonna say, but we're actually picking up at least 2 spaces, right?
Yeah.
Directly across the street.
Yes.
So at least it's in the
In
same,
the general
in the
vicinity.
same exact area, even if it's not directly across the street.
And there are those 3 on Dedham, nearby as well. All right. Well, moving on to the hybrid.
I'm pretty.
But that's the other one, which was not that one, but yeah. Nice.
Okay. So same thing, going west to east for the hybrid alternative. As we mentioned before, from Linden to Maple, this option is the same as the 4-lane. The difference becomes when you go from Maple to the east, instead of going from 1 lane to 2 lanes, the corridor stays 1 travel lane in each direction. So until we get to the railroad crossing, there's really no change in the overall pavement width. There's parking on either side, similar to the 4-lane and the existing conditions. That added space is reallocated to the sidewalk on either side of the road. Then as we get to the east of the railroad crossing, you can see the pavement width starts to expand to allow for a turning lane from Great Plain Avenue onto Chapel Street. Looking here,
Car depth is, how many cars do you stack up?
it's about 3. There's some, guidance in terms of how quickly that lane can be developed. Obviously, we don't want to start developing it over the railroad tracks, so doing our best.
Okay.
So in this alternative, the portion of Great Plain Avenue from Chapel to Dedham would be reconstructed. We are showing that 3-lane configuration through that portion of the corridor. Here, that middle lane would be equally allocated to left turns going onto Chestnut as well as going onto Highland. There was some talk of potentially hardening that double yellow to make sure that folks only don't cross over the double yellow to try to get to the turn lane they want to go to.
What's that word you said, pardoning?
Hardening, so like having flex posts or something to
okay.
make sure,
Like
like
it's something other than paint.
yeah, so if you're coming eastbound and the through lane is backed up, but you want to go to the left turn lane, you're not encouraged to
Right.
go on the other side of the road.
And it's equal traffic because is the traffic turning left on Highland roughly equivalent from a volume perspective, turning left?
Yes, roughly equivalent, yep.
Alright, and it's a no, it's just the other lane is straight, not right turn only.
Correct.
I hate that.
And just a question, kind of going back a little bit, the signal before the tracks, going eastbound, it preempts so that like cars can't queue on the other side, back into the railroad track. So I assume that this would adjust that signal
For coordination.
to make it fewer cars than can.
Yes.
either way.
Okay, here you can also see Chapel Street southbound. Currently, there is a through lane and a dedicated left turn lane. In this option, that would be reduced to 1 travel lane, to accommodate all vehicles. Because of that change, we're able to add 6 new parking spaces, on Chapel, where in the space that is currently that through right travel lane.
And then one more.
Does that, how does that relate in terms of the bus stop?
So the bus stop, I believe, is on this side. Yeah, so
Okay, it's just on the left side.
Okay.
Okay, because of the,
Yeah.
yeah, because of the notch in that you do right now.
Yeah.
Will the traffic study show what that would do to the chapel reconfiguration?
yes, so the traffic analyses we've done so far have shown the impacts to Chapel, assuming no diversion. We're going to present new traffic results in the next month or so that would incorporate the anticipated level of diversion.
And those 6 spaces are like a little line carrying it forward, so it will meet with the other spaces.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it's just a continuation of the existing parking lane. We also identified Chapel as being a
Excuse me, that wasn't 6 new, it's just, we're adding
6
spaces.
new.
6 new.
No,
Yeah.
6 new,
Yeah, I
From
think the
here-
pyramid ends around.
Oh,
They just
gotcha.
end.
Yeah.
Because there's not 2 lanes, the
Okay.
6 will be in front of there. the other six-
Do any good.
So-
Businesses on-
And so you're
No,
able
they
to
don't.
turn right or go straight.
Or go left.
Or go left.
Yep.
And so if you're traveling from east to west on Great Plain, you're gonna be in one lane all the way through the center. Other than if you decide to turn, you will not have to do anything other than just keep driving straight.
Correct.
Mhm.
No decisions need to be made. And then we're showing a median on Chapel that will likely be mountable to accommodate emergency vehicles, but would be refined moving forward.
So they
Multiple
go
Mountable
right through
means
the middle.
low. You've
Yeah,
seen,
low.
like, sometimes they're rippled, it's almost like concrete, and
Yeah.
you can, if you need to clear that,
Yeah.
it's not like a curb line.
Yeah,
Okay.
off-road curb.
And is
Yeah.
there, is the main reason for doing that to Chapel Street safety related or to gain parking?
It's both. We didn't see from an operational perspective, a large benefit to the left turn lane, so this option includes turn lanes where they were most impactful.
A trade-off.
Did the snowplow plow over that?
The
The
mountable.
mountain
Right.
road.
We have, I think, it's actually more than multiple, the one that's at, Warren Street on Dedham. Like we
Oh,
have
yeah, yeah,
other,
yeah.
you know, refuge islands and that sort of thing that are there that we.
Okay.
Well, if you talk about the middle of it, we would have to have our hand crew clear the middle section.
You can see this option also shows instead of kind of that, I forget the term you use for the, scramble crossing, is that it? Like people can go in any direction.
Think about like kitty corner.
Kitty corner, yeah, so instead of having in the existing condition, no defined crosswalks for these two intersections and people being able to go in whatever direction they want, these would have established you cross one road at a time, which enables the pedestrian phase to be shorter than in the 4-lane alternative.
Does these crosswalk, Mark, are they gonna be painted, or are they gonna be the kind of raised, slightly raised stuff?
That's, yeah, whichever.
I think that's when we get more to the design phase,
Yeah.
right? So now it's trying to figure out where we're putting the things, and then I think when we get there, we'll figure out what it looks like, more
Only just-
specifically what it looks like.
Here, so does that mean that all those pavers are getting ripped up?
If we do the inner corridor, so I'll just say, if you touch the pavers, you're done, right? Like, the fact they've held up as well as they have, if you look at neighboring communities, Wellesley, Dedham, they're all ripping them up right now. Norwood, these have actually held up really well. We have worked very carefully with the utility, with our own issues, whenever there's been a problem in the intersection to avoid touching them. But when you touch them, they will unravel. So for example, if you do a bump out on one side, or you want to make any safety modification, and at some point, we have underground electric there, we have gas, we have water, we have sewer, at some point, something will happen and we will have to excavate. But as soon as you touch them, they do tend to become more
So
problematic.
even in the 4-lane plan, there's bump outs being put in, so does that?
In that one section. So one of the reasons, I think we talked about it to begin with, we weren't gonna touch anything in the intersection of Chapel and Chestnut and Great Plain Ave. So you'd asked about, could you do a bump out? And I had indicated that if you're trying to preserve the cost that was, or the value that was already put in that intersection, you don't wanna add a bump out. I think the challenge in this particular corner is the fact that you have the slip lane that we would have to modify in some way.
So that would get ripped up. Those pavers would get ripped up. That intersection
Yeah.
would be ripped up in
Yeah.
any of in all 3 plans.
In all 3 plans.
And then the other intersection would get ripped up in the 2-lane.
Correct. And I think the question is, how far back can you go in order to rebuild it? But yes, a portion of that would get ripped up in all 3 plans.
For those who are on virtually, can we just specify?
Oh, sure. So we're saying the Chestnut Chapel, Great Plain Ave intersection would be adjusted in all, in only the hybrid and the 2-lane. And that the Great Plain Ave, Dedham Ave, Highland intersections, the existing brickwork would likely be redone, all or most of it, in all 3 plans.
Right,
And
thank
whether or
you.
not it's redone and we're replacing it with brick, or if it's redone and we're doing pavement markings, right, whatever it ends up looking like, that we haven't gotten to yet.
Okay, thank you.
Just a question. I know one of the things that, that we certainly hope by the bump outs and things like that, that will normally do more to calm traffic coming through. In fact, I was just talking to somebody, one of the landlords, who was downtown just a day or two ago. And he was like, I can't even understand how people just launch themselves from the, basically, as soon as the light changes, they're up 35, 40 miles an hour just to be able to race to the next thing, hoping you don't get caught in the light. So, but one of the things that happens on the other end, coming from Linden's side, is that people are coming in easily at 35 or 40 miles an hour. And one of the things that I don't know whether I mean, there's no need for a crosswalk further past that area, but things like, are there, when you were talking about potentially, something that was raised as a crosswalk, things like that just force people to slow down because they're coming into a pedestrian way, and by their natural movements, they tend not to until they are actually presented with something that causes them to slow down, like a speed bump or some version that causes that kind of slow down. Is that, at what point does things like that fit into this? Because it's all part of the experience of being in the downtown.
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly, I don't know if the town has a policy on raised intersections versus raised crosswalks.
We've only just started dabbling, I guess I would say, in doing raised raised crosswalks. We don't have raised intersections yet. It doesn't again mean that you couldn't, it just means they haven't. I know what you're talking about, and I think that was one of the challenges that certainly came up in the initial design of the downtown was how do you make people feel like this is a place where people are walking, moving, and not necessarily just a roadway conduit, right? Like, how do you get that feeling?
Yeah.
We had talked in the initial phases about some vertical deflection, so doing like chicanes, and we talked about kind of like manufacturing them with parking. I think it's fair to say we got a lot of pushback about doing that because you'd have to modify existing parking. And you can't like, if you're building a brand new downtown, you could decide like where to place your buildings and how to kind of create that. But right now we have a very, I think Kevin, you had said it, like very rectilinear downtown. So you kind of have that straight way. So, I mean, we certainly could talk about like, what traffic calming measures could be integrated into the project with, I think we could have that conversation regardless of all three of which option we choose.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like choosing one of the options precludes us from doing certain things. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because I know we
yeah.
talked originally, I mean, I think originally it was a gateway, right? Like that was one of the conversations was, what do you do to make people feel like they're coming into a new space? Like a gateway, there was some like monumentation that we were talking about. So physical reminders that you're in a space that is a space where there's a lot of movement happening between cars and people, and how do you get people to pay attention, I think is really the big question.
I think the one of the trickiest place I think is just when you're coming in from Wellesley. Because it's such a straightaway. And if there was something that happened maybe certainly by Linden. And potentially even for Monttree, but I mean, not, yeah, Monttree, but I would say pretty much by the time you get to Linden Street. It'd be great if there was something that just, caused them to slow down. Because once we know that, one of the fatalities we had was at the crosswalk, which is right basically Linden, right? So getting them to slow down before there. So that they're, whatever ideas they might be to do that. Just creates a whole nother level of safety for people being able to feel comfortable. For the people who are actually in the intersection, because you can raise things within the intersection. But if you haven't stopped them from coming in at the high speed, that's sort of just a secondary thing. And
I think also there's a psychological aspect to streamlining the lanes and adding the bump outs where drivers' vehicles are not feeling like they have such
Open
ample
space.
space
That's right.
that like they can just kind of fly through. I think you'll see a psychological shift that like this is not actually a place where, because I have a lane and a half of space, I can kind of swerve around someone or increase my speed to 40 miles an hour on a dime. So that also makes an impact on just driver behavior in general.
But I think things like gateways and traffic calming features would certainly be part of that secondary conversation once we've figured out the layout.
Yeah, and I know that all of these plans are purposely bare in terms of what's happening past the curb line, but a gateway treatment doesn't have to just be something at the start of the project limits. It's the feel of, different trees, different lighting, like this feels like a downtown. Yeah.
I think like brick, if I were to think of like some of the treatments that we put in the initial project, we felt like the brick felt like, it felt more of like a town corridor and not a, residential road. Yeah.
Also, this is in front of CVS, right? With the sidewalks, I think it's
Yeah,
like the
yes,
most
yes,
narrow.
yep.
Now, that's the widest sidewalk, right? Or is it?
It's about the same.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's, yeah, it's by arm's length.
I know we're jumping around, but just to kind of wrap up the hybrid alternative, and in front of the town common. I know we were talking about the 4-lane having those two left turn lanes. Here, because Great Plain Avenue only has one through lane, immediately to the west of the intersection, we're showing one dedicated left turn lane, up Chapel, and then the other lane would just be straight and right movements.
So this does, and I
He
think,
said chapel.
Oh, I'm sorry.
and I think, Kevin, you pointed this out, but I just want to be clear. So this section here where people are coming, if you're facing
Point
east.
to it.
Yeah, if you're here, coming in this way. Yeah. And because one of the things that happens is when people come across here, this is where people, basically whip over to the left. And where you're trying to take a left-hand turn and suddenly this car is stopped, but you're trying to be able to go left and they're cutting on around the back of that car and then shooting forward. And so this looks like it would address that problem.
Yeah. So what you're saying is in the innermost corridor in front of the town hall.
Yeah.
Because you have cars that are taking left-hand turns, it's hard to tell if you have the right of way. Like if you have two cars taking left-hand turns, it's hard to tell who has the right of way because you have people whipping by them going straight.
Yeah.
This now creates a space for each person to make their transition.
Yeah, that's, I mean, it's absolutely a hazard. I mean, every time I go through that intersection and I'm looking to the left, I'm watching the inside lane because I know guaranteed that even though I can't see them, that somebody is gonna.
Yeah, someone will go into the right turn lane to go around someone in the left turn lane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will note about a third of the crashes within the project limits are side swipes, which is indicative of that kind of jockeying behavior. So.
So this could be a significant improvement in the safety though. That is.
Yeah.
And not significant. And not.
For not only non-motorists, but also motorists.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, so going easterly, this is very similar to, I think it's identical to the 4-lane. So east of Dedham, we have one travel lane in each direction. You can see significantly shorter crosswalks with those, substantial bump outs.
In the 4-lane on the.
Yes, you're right,
Going
you're
the other
right.
direction.
Going westbound, there are two
Yeah.
lanes, and then eastbound, there's one lane. Thank you. And then from Pickering to the east, they're identical. Okay. Any questions? We'll go to the 2-lane. So. Right, okay, so. The 2-lane is identical to the hybrid to the west of the railroad crossing. But instead of widening out from 2 lanes to 3 lanes to the east of the railroad crossing, you can see that it maintains that consistent 2-lane configuration. On this alternative, we are showing a left turn lane from Chestnut onto Great Plain Avenue, mainly because the fire station is down the street, and they mentioned that was important for an emergency access perspective.
And that's in all of them.
That's in all of them. That core block in front of Town Common, instead of having those 2 dedicated turn lanes, there would simply be one travel lane in each direction. And similarly on Dedham Avenue, instead of having a left turn lane and a through right, there would simply be one travel lane for all turning movements.
Okay.
And
then
you're
this
getting the
space,
spaces.
you're getting the
parking,
spaces.
but.
And in this one, the large area here.
We
Is-
could model that with cones.
Yeah, but this is actually all over, right, you can model this with
Yeah.
comps, because it really does go around the existing.
So you do
Yeah.
gain parking.
So I'll just say,
Right.
when we did talk about doing this with the fire department, we talked about doing it for like an hour or two, because I know there was like concerns about making changes to the downtown, so I'll just say, we'll work with the community outreach, and make sure that we inform people we're doing it. We'll do it in a low volume time of day and we'll remove those cones, as soon as we've run our experiments.
Just for Eversource now.
That also happens, it's true.
I'll also note, in addition to the turn lane on Chestnut, we're also showing a turn lane on Highland coming into the project limits, in alignment with the TIP design plans. I believe the TIP design plans have a right turn lane and a through left. Our traffic analyses show that a dedicated left turn lane is actually better for operations.
So I think existing conditions is a right turn lane.
Okay.
I can't remember what they're.
It's a right turn lane. Hold on, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever last place.
So that's existing conditions as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. So that's the reason for that change.
So, but the one significant is in this and all the others is that, I'm just asking from a traffic impact point of view. In this one, there was only one lane, so everyone coming up here goes one of three directions. How does that, from a safety and just a traffic movement perspective, right? There's one lane, and so no matter where you're going, you're stopping here and then you're being asked to do this thing.
Yeah.
How does that work from a
Can I
traffic?
just ask one
perspective?
question on top of that? Would you keep the phasing the same?
Yeah,
As
so-
far as exclusive phasing for Dedham Avenue?
Yep, so Dedham and Highland operate separately, so left turns aren't waiting for a gap in Highland traffic because no one from Highland is coming
Okay.
down.
Okay. that's-
Which is the
okay.
same as the current condition. They also don't operate at the same time. I take that turn a lot, so I know, I memorize the phasing.
Trying to remember
yeah.
what,
Yeah.
whether I see people coming at me.
The main issue is that because there aren't two travel lanes, the queue length is further back
Right.
because they're all in a single lane.
Does that lane, should that lane move quicker or same or?
Again, TBD based on the diversion analysis result. So, certainly I think overall the operations are anticipated to be worse in the two lane than the hybrid.
Okay.
Or the level of diversion would be greater. And then from Dedham to the east, the two lane is identical to the hybrid. So yeah, similar wider sidewalks, shorter crosswalks, similar bump out configurations.
Do you get an extra spot or so, like right here, because now you're able to extend this out further, so you're able to pull the. Yeah. It's like, that's,
They're both showing as
There is an
12.
extra, its proposed space is 22 to 21. But I don't know how that compares to the other.
There's definitely a difference between the 40 and the hybrid.
I don't.
it's not coming out that far to
Yeah,
ground.
I think,
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think
This
there's
is
a difference
the-
between the two lane and the hybrid.
So no hesitation.
Not between the hybrid and the two lane. Yeah. I will say the two lane does add spaces on Denham Avenue because there's only one travel lane, instead of two. That pavement on the right side of the roadway can be reallocated, so that's an additional 6 spaces.
So
The no lane plan? Big flat.
the major difference is like, we're talking like the middle by where the common is.
Yeah.
And so like, what will happen when people take a left turn there? Is there some efficiency gain because there isn't a straight? Like, will there be, it'll obviously be less efficient if there isn't queuing for 2 or 3 spaces, but. There will be no one, like, may come against someone else taking a left turn, or there may be gaps in the traffic. Will it be easier, or like, will there be efficiency gains by having 2 lanes then?
I would say, yeah, easier for someone to make a left turn from the perspective you're saying of there's only one opposing lane of traffic, but less efficient in the fact that unless certain drivers won't feel comfortable going around, if someone's waiting to make a left within the limits of the intersection, would queue up behind them instead of going around them. So it depends on how many people are waiting to turn left.
That makes sense.
I also want to say in the traffic analysis that you do now versus when we get to like a design phase. Obviously queuing makes a huge sense, how you sequence the lights, if you allow like one lane to be able to clear out 4 or 5 cars before the other lane gets a green. What point does that happen in the process as far as like you're doing traffic modeling now, but I imagine you haven't gotten to like a finalized design plan for the signals.
Well, I mean, and Tyler might be able to speak to this, but the adaptive signals really, it has a mind of its own and we can't really define that. So it will, the signal system will see what approach of the intersection is queuing up the most and will change the timing to address that.
So as opposed to before where we'd have to, so will it do lead lag though for like if you wanted to allow, if you're going on Great Plain Ave towards Wellesley and we find that there's a lot of people taking left-hand turns there. And again, this
I
is the
don't know
limits
if
of
it does
adaptive
that.
signals. That's what I was wondering if we have to program that as part of our modeling.
Well, there's also the question is that however smart they are, that assumes people have actually indicated that they want.
No, it'll actually, it doesn't do it based on, you'll have to say, but it does it based on common behaviors, not on the behaviors of the people who are queued up at that particular time.
So there are like patterns that can be programmed, and then there's the timing pattern. So the smart signal will, if you turn it on to the smart mode, essentially, it will adapt the timing of the signals to lengthen or shorten different phases in order to clear the queuing. It won't change to a completely different pattern in order to do that. So it's not going to allow traffic from one direction that normally goes at the same time as the other to hold one direction. So it basically changes how long the program phases are, not what the program is.
So just to make sure I know, so if you're looking at the traffic that's coming. You got one lane, so people are all piled up here and waiting, right? What it's looking at and figuring out is basically maybe that to tell you, should it leave the whatever it's doing, like the green longer?
Right.
Because there's a lot of cars here. Doesn't know whether they're gonna turn other than whatever you program, left, right, or straight. It just sees that there's more, the traffic cars are piling up here. So perhaps this green or this way ought to be longer or whatever,
Yeah.
or the exclusive green.
That's right. And that's how the public safety extension of greens work as well. It's the same.
I would say it also learns, right? So it learns patterns. So I'll just say the first, I don't know if anyone was there the day that they put them up. I happened to go through the downtown a couple of times. And there were pretty significant queues on Dedham Ave, on Chapel, because it was learning how to modify. And then as it learns, it gets smarter and smarter. So I think that's the
It's not
uncontrolled nature of it.
Yeah, it's not on the like AI mode currently. It's been programmed with the phasing, the timing pattern that was designed for it as part of the project. So it's collecting additional information now based on those existing connections. And then it'll collect more data, and then to a point where we're able to turn on different features or manipulate the settings in order to allow a greater range to deviate from.
Effectively, you'll have a tiny little traffic engineer.
So it's learning now.
It is learning now.
That's pretty normal, isn't it?
So, a part of this project, so from what I get from what Tyler says is that the kind of the phases aren't gonna change with the new signals, but if you did one of these, would the signal phases be changed or updated or?
I would think the timing, our initial programmed timings would be different. And then it would relearn Yeah.
Yeah, they would have to be because we're also, you have the dedicated crossing directions too. Right? It's not the scramble
Oh, that's
anymore.
right.
Yeah, so the
So-
pedestrian phase would be shorter.
Yeah.
And also, I would imagine we would have a conversation about the left-hand turns and do you phase a period of time where you can
Yeah.
just clear out the left-hand turns or
Yeah.
not? So I think it really does depend on which alternative we look at, how the signals would be designed in order to manage the traffic. I think in all three scenarios, they probably would look completely differently as far as how they would be optimized. I'd also say as far as the infrastructure upgrade, so in the in the 4-lane alternative, there are not significant upgrades to the physical infrastructure. That doesn't mean you can't add a left light or something else, but they're not looking at changing the signal masts where they're located. When you get into more changes, obviously, we'll have to figure out what can be salvaged from the existing infrastructure and what needs to be replaced. And that becomes more important in each. The more changes you make, the more you may have to change the physical underground layout infrastructure of the signals.
The modeling, one of the bigger factor for the modeling is the capacity rather than the signal timings. Signal timings play a role, but the biggest impact to the model will be the capacity of the infrastructure and how that's manipulated.
In other words, if you're a 2-lane model, you have a certain amount of infrastructure that's restricting the flow in certain ways. And then you have a different model that it has a greater ability to pass more physical cars through the area because it has more space to be able to basically do that.
Pass or hold.
Yeah. pass it.
But not double,
Right.
because there's some
Yeah, yeah.
inherent inefficiencies with, having unmarked, non-dedicated turn lanes, et cetera. So.
I think so. You really kind of think about it in terms of, you kind of assume the optimal timing for each scenario and then compare the capacity, and how that changes, the ability, the throughput of the intersections. The timing will be basically optimized depending on the situation, but it's not going to significantly change, the overall throughput.
But each plane will have its own capacity signature. And then from that, then you know that you'll only get better by the lights being able to time more to real life than just fixed program.
Each plan would come with like a recommendation for view of which movements or which.
Yeah. And this technology was basically starting when we looked at this project, I mean, it was even like, I think, the late 2010s, and it has come light years since that particular time.
Trying to open a can of worms? Since forever, you've never been allowed to take a left from Great Plain heading, to turn left onto Dedham Ave. Would this be an opportunity because we've reconfigured the orientation of Dedham Ave? I mean, because otherwise, everyone has to cut down, be coming down here, and you need to go to like CVS, you go down Warren, get onto Dedham to get into here to go in. But this would be quicker.
Well, you'd only have one lane coming this way, so it would be left plus through. So you'd have everybody backed off.
onto
Like you'd have,
Yeah.
everybody would have.
They're trying to figure out, can you do a left?
You can't
from
do it now,
Great
you've
Plains?
never been able to.
Hmm.
It's like since
What
forever.
was that restriction?
Tom, do
due
you
to?
remember in the way back of why that decision was made to begin with? We can certainly research it.
I
looked into it. It's always been that way, so.
It's to avoid the situation where you're turning into an active looking for. So it's because it's prioritizing the other movements.
Okay.
If you introduce that ability to turn left, then that means you're sort of deprioritizing the other movements to the intersection. So, it's not impossible to change. It's just that it may cause greater wait times for other.
Okay.
See if I can get a better answer.
It'd make the neighbors here happier.
Well, the angle isn't conducive.
I know, right?
What I did with angle.
But I think the angle does change a little bit in this orientation from existing conditions. It makes it more of a right-hand turn than it's currently like a 45-degree turn.
Yeah.
Does that provide the ability is the question.
And does it affect safety?
Yeah, because if you wanted to make it happen, you may choose to do a leading turn interval, but then that means that traffic coming the other direction is waiting.
Yeah, right, okay.
Any other questions?
Thanks for opening the can of worms.
It was good.
Come up before as well.
Okay, so moving on to the next topic is to decide how to quantify the traffic impacts in the key topics tab. And
So this
thank
is,
you, Eileen, for pointing out that that was kind of, we glazed over it last time, so.
yeah, we figured it was a conversation in of itself. So I think what we're trying to figure out for guidance purposes is how do we want to provide that information? So there's a couple different options, right? There's a quantitative alternative. We put in some traffic data and we can pick, I think, more of the crucial movements through the downtown and what that looks like in all three of the alternatives in a numbers basis. Or we can do it in a narrative format where you say like this is, equal to or better than existing. This is, same as existing, assuming diversion, or this is, slower movement or more congestion through the intersection. And may require some diversion. So I think what we're trying to figure out when we figure out how to articulate that is what would be the preference on how to articulate it. Is it in words or is it in numbers that we think provides the best the best information for somebody to make a decision?
We took a initial stab at it earlier today. Obviously knowing, the diversion analysis is still ongoing, but, addressing, there are two different topics. One is the anticipated level of diversion, and two is the change in travel time for those that aren't diverting. So this is showing, we could use this format in either a narrative or a numerical form, either, limited impact, significant impact, or kind of percent change. We also thought it would be important to clarify changes to travel time on off-peak hours as well as peak hours. Yeah.
I think you do need to somewhere make sure you have defined what traffic diversion is.
Yes.
Or
Absolutely.
They should, they should know what it is that you're saying.
And in the multiple ways that.
1 hour webinar to explain.
I know, some things that I can help say, it means this many people won't be going, will go somewhere else, or whatever, however you wanna say it.
Yeah.
And also just relevant to that too is, as you had pointed out in other pieces, that some of the diversion would be potentially the people who would take, they do now take Garden Street to cut around. And other diversion happens way before they ever get to the town. So being able to understand, because obviously one of the things that the businesses are really concerned with is losing flow from other towns coming through. So that's, it's a very important, element to be able to be at least clear on what they would happen versus the three plans.
I think it needs to be numbers because like you guys are saying some impact, but to us, it's not some, it's a lot. You know what I mean? So I think numbers are a solid way to put it.
And then I guess the question is for us, right? There's a lot of different movements that a person could make. I know when Apex presented their initial traffic analysis, they had sort of highlighted the ones that they felt like were the most significant in each commute time. So like morning and afternoon, and I think school release. So would it make sense to focus on like 3 of them? Because again, you want to provide enough information that a person can get the full picture, but not so much information that they're looking at like, well, this gets better and this gets worse and this gets better. And like, it can be overwhelming. So just trying to figure out like, does it make sense to lean on the, I think it was 3 traffic movements that were identified in that initial analysis? at the peak times that were identified. And then, are we okay with just looking at those 3 movements? Cause I know someone might ask, like, what if I'm coming from Highland onto Great Plain Ave, but that's just not movement that they saw as much frequency with.
It was to and from Dedham and then just going
Straight up. Great Plain.
straight through on Great Plain.
But that's
Also, Chestnut Street wasn't one of them?
Chestnut was one of them.
Yeah, I thought Chestnut was too.
That was on the larger table, but like in the more detailed
Can you,
results.
maybe you could do like a overview, like don't get technical on this, but put it on here for people to actually see. Do you know what I mean? So is this what you're gonna present to the
So-
public?
I think, great, 2 things. So one is the idea was to have something simple where you could sort of see trade-offs on one page. And then what you're also saying is, can you provide more detail on the plan itself, like we have with parking?
Yes.
Yeah, so that people can literally look at Chapel Street and see potential for a 25-minute backup, doing that. Or whatever the numbers turn out to be.
Viewing time.
And like potential for this many cars to be diverted, because some people. Like businesses will wanna know that because they rely on. Well,
And the neighborhoods are gonna wanna
oh
know.
yeah, for the diversion
For the
part too,
diversion.
because they're concerned about it,
Where they're going.
where they're going.
Into their neighborhoods.
You're not gonna know where
We're
they're
not
you're not gonna, you're only gonna
No,
know
but
that
we're-
traffic's
you're
going
gonna
away, you don't know where.
where
We're
it's
not
gonna go.
saying. she
I'm
has
not
to
saying
see
you
where
have to
it's
say
going.
where it's gonna go, but I'm just saying the diversion.
Yeah, so we
People
can
should know.
say based on overall origins and destinations of trips going through. These types of trips are anticipated to seek alternative routes. But not, we expect X more trips going down this side street, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
But
we're not,
you're-
we're
right, but
not
you're-
saying that, but don't, people are concerned about traffic being diverted to their street, so I think to show that, like, how much traffic will be diverted is important. We're not saying you have to say, oh, it's all gonna go on May Street, we mean
Yeah.
more like, to show how.
Yeah, cause I think there's
how
sort
life
of
will get
2
diverted.
components, there's local diversion, right? So someone who's driving within the town from one part of town to the other, that would be one level of concern. And then I think there's another point, which is maybe more, it sounds like it's more significant for the business population, is regional cut through traffic that might go to 128 as opposed to going on 135.
Yeah.
So I think there's, as long as we'll figure out how to articulate the clarity that there's sort of
Yeah.
2 different subsets that you're looking at in that percentage, you're not looking at. So let's say if
Right.
it's like a 10% diversion, you're not talking about 10% that's now going on May Street, but you're talking about, you know, a percentage of that will go on maybe on May Street and a percentage of that might be going on 128 or the Pike.
I mean,
Is that the
it's-
placeholder right now, like the regional traffic diverted?
Yeah,
percentage? So
just-
that's-
yeah,
So
'cause
that's a
we
nice
don't-
way to quantify
Yeah.
it, I think, it sounds like that's the.
I think
the helpful
it'll
metric.
also be important to dedicate some time to this during the January informational sessions, because this is such a complicated situation, it's hard to.
Yeah.
Do it in a soundbite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even 5%, it's like, okay, is that a horrible
Yeah.
thing, or is that, like, what is that actually, so I think
Of
actually.
what? Yeah.
Yeah, digging into that is probably gonna be
Yeah.
really helpful.
But I think that's also why we thought noting anticipated change in travel times for off-peak as well as peak hours is important.
Yeah.
Because there is such an immense influx during those 3 peak times. So that it can sort of be understood on a deeper level that like, there are 24 hours in the day. During these 3-4 hours, this is the impact. During the other 20-21, we expect no change or a little bit of change or whatever the.
Where it says
language might be.
some and minimal, I guess the question would be back to the like quantitative.
Yeah.
Can you put like 60 seconds to, 3 minutes, or can you do something where there's a range of
Yeah.
time?
I think
As
once we
opposed to
have
summer
the
minimal?
results,
Yeah.
it'll be easier to say, do you want
Yeah.
it in this wording or these numbers?
And you want that,
But.
like, as the heading for that, like,
Well, so
Yeah.
that's sort of why we have designed this the way that we have, where we have like a quick kind of overview and then the quantitative information below, because there needs to be a way to quickly communicate.
Like what number would be bolded?
Right.
I don't know.
Or like how would you?
Well, somewhere there should be numbers, like if you're not gonna put it
Yeah.
there, then it should be here, you know,
Talked
or
about ranges.
somewhere
Yeah.
where people can actually say. oh my
Yeah, so I was
God,
suggesting a range on there and then more details on the plan.
Yeah, so like it would say no impact, but then we have the percentage of the diverted and then.
Yeah.
The increased time, like all the numbers will be underneath that. Like, is that-
Yeah.
That's not, that's it.
No, I thought I heard that the range would be with TBD. The range would.
Where it
be
says
that way.
TBD currently.
Yes,
So
thank
it's,
you.
Yeah.
Okay, and then even more detail below that, so it wouldn't say. I think what you just said.
Yeah, so like no impact,
So-
underneath it, we'll have we'll have the actual percentages X there now, that will be. You know, 0, right, for no impact, right, 0%, and then like anticipated travel time. Okay, so
don't know,
you have no
like-
change there, but we'll say 0. Instead of no change.
Like we could do something like
Yeah, that's helpful.
yeah.
or like 2 to 5 minutes.
One thing I do think it would be helpful in the potential traffic impacts is if you can put the current time it takes to go through, because I do think there's a relative measure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cause if it takes you 3 minutes to go through
Yeah.
and the ad is
Yeah.
3, that's like 100%, but if it takes you 7 minutes to go through now and you're adding 3, it's just, it
Yeah.
seems. I mean, 3 minutes is 3 minutes, but there's a relativity to it.
People are they're going to react to how they feel. How long, how much difference it is from now to whatever the change is. And, you know, if we can do this skillfully enough, that they may actually feel that it's better. So, you know, in terms of timing, because they're not being caught in some of the snags that happen in the intersections currently. That, you know, where, like we were talking about, you know, one car gets to turn left. And then the cars are coming towards you, so you just sit there and you just wait in the middle of the intersection until the light changes and then you turn on red.
There's a lack of clarity of behaviors within the intersection right now that could have a delaying factor. Yes.
Is there, with the updates to the signals now, if we are representing existing conditions, then it's actually going to be past conditions.
Sounds like we don't have,
Right,
we're not there yet.
Right.
So I mean,
So that will, I mean, we'll have to just update that when we can.
Yeah.
Right? So that might be a couple months from now, but I just wanna make note of that. Okay.
But how are we, if it's gonna be in a few months from now, how are we gonna give the public like the proper information?
so I guess the
mid-January?
question is right now. Right, like if we hadn't done the bottleneck grant, if we hadn't made the improvements and we were still proposing this project. What the change would be to how a person experiences the downtown. I think people can equate what they're currently experiencing and how it would change. If it gets better under the current conditions, there's not gonna be like, we're here now, the new condition will be here. If it gets better, we're going here. This goalpost isn't moving. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the change. The change that they're measuring is not tied to the existing condition. What they're measuring is how well these new intersections can perform. And those intersections won't perform any better or worse because we've upgraded our existing infrastructure.
We also have data analytics that are generated from the new cameras that could be given to the traffic team to incorporate into their analysis.
But the numbers that we're gonna be giving them to true numbers is my question. Like, when will that study be done?
What do you mean by true numbers?
Like, so if you guys are gonna do a study of what the impact is, the diversion, all that kind of stuff. When will that be done?
Oh, the diversion analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're right now working on the contract component of it, and so it will be done, I would hope in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Cause we have to make sure it's like the correct information. 6 to 8 weeks does bring us mid-January. That's my concern. Like, we have to make sure what's on here is the actual information.
Yeah, so I'm looking at all these analytics right now. I think that, you know, Jim and, you know, I think this could be useful for them to just make sure that we're using up-to-date data. And then if we can compare to existing and make sure that it's reflective of the.
And that's really just on the showing the current timing that we're doing now. It's the difference of either what it is today or what it is with the updated signals, but that's just for current timing.
I think, but their point of concern is gonna be, and I know, is that when the roads get modified, how much difference is that gonna be from what it is existing now?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, so that's, I mean, that's really the comparison that the people are gonna.
Yeah, and I think the word existing is challenging because it's a moving target, right? Like what the current scenario is, or what it was 8 days ago, is different than what is today, is different what it will be 2 months from now. And so I think there's a question or concern that if you compare it to what there was before, to what you have now, what's the baseline, I think is really what the question is.
Right.
And should the baseline be the design of the downtown as it existed up until 3 weeks ago, or is the baseline once these new smart signals are optimized?
I feel like the baseline should be when they're looking at. You know what I mean? Like, people need to know, like, from today, this is what the change is going.
So I think it would be
Meaning not
September.
today, meaning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
January.
September 9th would be the baseline, because that's when the data was collected for the traffic study.
Okay. Yeah.
But isn't it not gonna be correct because of changing the lighting?
I mean, given it's adaptive, it will always change.
So, but it's measured, we know, a set amount of traffic at certain times.
So the timing is gonna change on the margins. Continuously, right?
Right.
The timing pattern is what they're doing the analysis off of. Not the individual timing sequence of each light. So you could have like we were discussing before, you could have a pattern where the opposite traffic can come on a delay for a few seconds and then the other one goes. That's a different pattern. Having one direction of traffic go 2 seconds longer on Monday and 2 seconds shorter on Wednesday is not going to significantly impact the analysis. So it's going off of the pattern, not specific time.
And would also like acknowledge the, like, we are basing our analyses from traffic counts on one day and traffic counts are different every single day. So like there's some element of you're never gonna be representative of every day.
But I think the day it was done was such a bad day too. Like, I'm really concerned about this because I know you said second week of September is one of the busiest. It's not. It's not one of the busiest times in Needham. So these numbers that we're gonna be presenting to the public will not be accurate. Like, we literally, I know you don't want to hear this, but it's true. Like, it is dead in Needham Center the second, and especially on a Tuesday.
Oh my God.
So we have the current, the cameras. One of the other advantages is that it's recording data.
But the study's
Every
being
day.
done from September 9th,
Right.
they just said.
Right.
Right, so we can supply this most recent data to them and they can use it to compare against the data that they have to make
I
sure.
mean, I think that would be better, at least a little more accurate, especially this time of year. It's busier than September 9th.
Yeah, so they can compare the counts that we're taking now with the counts that we're taking then and make sure that they're not up.
That seems fair.
Yeah. Are you able to let us know what those differences are of those?
I expected to have a significant difference in time when I drive through the downtown. Like, are we talking minute or like seconds with the new signals?
The biggest change was the coordination of the signals. So it should allow it, so one of the criteria that it's tracking is the red or green light arrivals. So there's a percentage, currently it's showing 39% green light arrivals, 61% red light arrivals. The
Could you explain what you mean by arrivals? I don't think-
so that meaning that vehicles are, as they approach the detection area where the camera's pointed, the light is green or the light is red, right?
Wow.
So out of all traffic, it's recording that. So typically what an ideal system is shooting for is a 60 to 70% green light arrival and 30 to 40% red light arrival. That's typically as good as you're going to be able to get. So the system is going to improve over time as we're looking at this, collecting this data, because it'll suggest how we make adjustments to improve those numbers. that is one way of showing, how, the delay is decreasing. Because if it's, obviously, if it's a green light as you approach the intersection and 70% of traffic is a green light when you're at the, approaching the intersection, that means that we've made an improvement. So, that's how, and it's tracking that, day by day, hour by hour. So, one of the, so what the coordination is trying to do is basically it's taking what they call like platoons of, vehicles, and then it's, coordinating so that somebody sitting at Dedham Ave, can get from there across both intersections and start going past Needham Bank, all in one movement without any, hitting any red lights. So that's what it's trying to maximize. So it's not, just traffic goes faster, it's like making decisions about, groups of cars and moving them in the most efficient way possible.
I see,
Does that
and
make
that,
sense?
yeah, and that's the thing that. One of the things that it's obviously difficult to get a handle on is the fact that that's the experience of the person driving through. Like, if you can drive straight all the way through, which is an experience that nobody gets now, that even if the traffic were heavier, you don't feel like you're being stopped all the time. And it's every time you have to stop is the time when you feel more frustrated about being able to get to the intersection. But so the more opportunities you have to flow through, that it in effect would allow more traffic to flow through the intersection more consistently, which means that the experience of the driver is it's not so bad to drive through. Because many times I get to go straight through, whereas the experience now is not that.
I also wonder if the analysis results of the different configurations, like the hybrid and the 2-lane adaptive technology would improve upon the results we're getting.
Yep, it'll, again, it's optimization, it's not perfect, it's not gonna make it so that everybody hits green all the time, but you wanna have it more often than not. More often than not, that's the target.
I also think people learn, like, people know the value of something, and when is too long, too long. Like, I go to the store and I know a gallon of milk is about $4.29, but sometimes it's a few cents cheaper, sometimes it's a bit more. But I don't care about that, I'm just within that tolerance. And if this works, then it's like people will get it. If it's 2 seconds more one time, I don't know if that's worth, going that so.
I also imagine from a diversion perspective, it's a person's common experience, not a person's one-off experience that would cause them to make a behavioral change.
Right.
So we'll do those numbers on that.
But it's not gonna be on September 9th, it's gonna be what Tyler said, right? He's gonna do.
Well, I think we're gonna find out, are the September 9th. We're hearing there's a concern that the September 9th data is not accurate. What we'll do is we'll index it based on current behaviors to see if it's accurate or not.
Well, not that it's not accurate, it's just,
Outdated.
it's not the busiest time, you know what I mean? So it's not like, it's not a Tuesday is certainly not a good day to take any kind of study downtown.
So we'll see if that's accurate through the information that's provided through the traffic news.
Okay,
And we'll look at it for.
yeah,
let's see.
yeah, I just wanted to see how what we landed on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The next one is, okay, so we'll move on. Any comments about it? Okay, the evaluation criteria matrix review. Well, we haven't touched it in a while, but.
We had postponed it till
we'll
today.
postpone it to today.
Yeah, I guess I have the matrix. I don't know how you want.
Do you want to put the 1 through 5 up?
I
and
have the
see
1
if
through-
there's
Sure.
feelings and what direction we want to
Yeah,
move forward.
You didn't send this, right?
No, I'll be sending this material. I got it this morning. So I'll send the
Yeah, I
material
sent
out.
it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yeah.
So we had a conversation, I think about a month and a half ago, about the matrix that was put together. We've come up with evaluation criteria to try to figure out how to help people in a snapshot kind of understand the trade-offs in each of the projects. I guess I'll say a couple things, which is this was before we had that key topics narrative. So I guess the question I have kind of two is, one, does it make sense to continue moving forward with this as far as communication strategy goes? And then the second was, there was a concern, we had used an index of -2 to 2, with zero being a relatively neutral value. I think there was a concern that 0 meant worse. So instead, it was requested that we look at it from a 1 through 5 scale. So Apex just updated the analysis in a 1 through 5. So I guess the first question is, do we want to move forward with the matrix? The second is it -2 to 2 scale cleaner, or is a 1 through 5 scale cleaner?
Is the scale the same in each case? Like 1 is the best, 5 is the worst, or is it?
We're trying not to assign a value system to the numbers, but it's described, like 1 and 5 are described for each category.
I feel like 1 describes the greatest like potential risk,
Yeah.
and 5 describes the greatest potential benefit, and 3 shows no risk, no benefit, or no gain benefit
so-
from existing conditions.
So like rerouting, for example, is like, some might view rerouting as a good thing because they want less traffic in downtown. Whereas others might see it as a bad thing. That's one where we're not assigning one is good and one is bad.
I like the other concern.
Do you perceive, how do you perceive this being presented if we were to choose to do so? Would it be kind of like additional information if you want it, or would we review it during the session and have it up and,
So
because it can be complicated.
So I would think from the information session, like the key topics, all that stuff, I do think we would review as part of that information session. That assumes people attend or watch that information session afterward. What we also were talking about doing is having links available, right, for people who are taking the survey, because you want them to be able to see the plans, for example,
Yes,
right? If you don't
okay.
link the
Okay,
design, they can't really opine on the
Okay.
design.
okay.
And so this would sort of be like, maybe for the person who is casually aware of the project, but not like able to attend the information session, they still want to be able to answer it, to provide them some guidance.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just gonna go ahead and move that we move forward with the key topics guide that includes both the sort of more qualitative categorical and the quantitative. I think that this was worth doing as we were going through the process and piecing it together, and the level of detail, I think it was great for us, but from a communications and clarity perspective, I think this is kind of a non-starter in terms of public engagement. So I think I would just make I don't know if it's a motion or just suggestion that we
Make a
sort of move
motion, I'll
forward with
second
it.
it.
Key topics, I do think it includes like the same information, it's just in a
I mean,
presented.
I would say there's some topics that are not on this key topics
Right.
guide because we were trying to keep it to one page,
Right.
like, cost, policy alignment, like,
Yeah,
so.
and I love this stuff, I just don't know how much,
So
yeah.
I would think that if you want to keep this as a vehicle that might be used internally or as additional information,
Yeah.
based on what you just told me, says to me the -2 to +2 is better, because 1 to 5, there is no way, people associate with better, worse, high, low, you can't, that's what you do. If you say 0 to 2 and you explain, you say 0 is nothing changes,
Yeah.
+2 is, right? That would make more sense if that's what you're communicating. If you do keep this for whatever reasons.
So I just want to note, separate from the motion, not part of that, but I just want to note that the intention with the key topics sheet was to be a quick reference that sort of describes a high level of the matrix, but that the matrix allows for the quantitative information as to how we got to the decisions and the information we did in the key topics. So it's almost like the key topics is the sort of broadly used, broadly available option, but the matrix exists in addition to that for those who want to go deeper or have
Yes.
specific questions. Well, what do you mean that, this is how you're defining traffic? How do you quantify that? Oh, if we look at the matrix, here are some of the considerations.
Yeah,
So
this is a
it's
great
like-
thing to keep, and I think that's a
Right.
perfect distinction, yeah, I
Right.
think that's, the other one is sort of a good starting area, I see this as sort of like an appendix, a readily
Yeah.
available appendix,
Yeah.
but it's not gonna be like the first sheet that
Right.
we,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
yeah.
My only comment on that is that the topics guide is somewhat short. And I know that like, part of the select board was asking us to like direct the staff, the consultant and committee that's to evaluate each plan for its impacts on traffic congestion, parking, bike safety, pedestrian safety, economic vitality, cost. I guess we evaluated it here, but like this information should still be somewhat available. So
Yeah, definitely.
I guess it's fine to like put it on the back burner, but
Can you add
I also
cost to
think
this?
that like,
Yeah, can you?
I got, might not added this.
I mean, I guess we should have a conversation about whether or not there are more topics that belong on there. It's there now.
And let me just.
I think there's like,
Too, right?
So, I mean, we don't talk about safety, like, we don't talk about economic development, we don't talk about sustainability, we don't talk about cost, we don't talk about project policy alignment.
But what if we just added those in this format? You know,
I'd be fine with that.
What if the key topics guide was expanded more like this, kind of using words instead of numbers to explain all of the different things that are on the key topics guide?
Yeah, I just also think some of it was that it was some opinion. I don't think everything on the matrix was factual. I think some of it was like opinion based. So I think if we can be a little bit more black and white with some of that information on the key topics guide, then I would be.
Can you give an example? Because I think that's the part of the goal of the matrix is to provide information that isn't.
Yeah, so like, I don't know, I can't see it from here.
well, it was so long ago, but I
Yeah.
remember in the beginning when we were looking at it,
Like-
we asked where this came from and you guys said you did it.
Yeah,
And we were getting all these negatives for it did a lot to make the 4-lane plan look really bad, and that was
Yeah.
our concern.
right. And it seemed like more opinion based than factual.
Again, I had the exact opposite reaction when I looked at when it was the 0, not the.
But like
1
we
through 5.
we showed it to the other businesses and they feel the same way, like a lot of the businesses, and they still feel like even without this, even just looking at this, that everybody's doing everything they can to make the 4-lane plan look bad. Like, I'm just being honest, I'm passing on information that we've been told.
I think,
So
yeah.
why add to that is
So-
what I'm saying.
So I guess I would
Like,
say
let's say that, let's show we're listening.
the 4-lane plan is the least amount of change, right? It's the least amount of change, whether you like change, it's the least amount of change, whether you don't like change, it's the least amount of change. And I think that's what we're trying to capture in a lot of this information. And then the other plans have some pros and some changes that people maybe perceived as cons, right, depending on perspective. So to me, like I look at the 4-lane plan and I'm like, it's, to be frank, like if you're risk averse, it's the most attractive option because it changes the least about what we have about the downtown. And if you're more interested in risk reward, then you might be interested in making more of a change. Not that like one is bad or good, but it really has to do with your interest or tolerance for wanting change in the downtown corridor.
And I understand your intention, it's just, that's not how it's. You know, when we get letters or replies on our email, like when I sent it out about the loading zones. Like, I'm asking businesses about loading zones and they're going into all the other details about how, so what I'm saying is why add fuel to the fire if we can have something that's a little cleaner, a little less, like. What's the right word I'm
Like a
looking
ranking
for?
system. Like that.
Like the
Well,
ranking, the ranking.
numbers
system
or
is
The
done.
numbers
Yeah,
are
that's fair.
ranking, yeah.
And then I guess my other just question or like what it would be helpful is what language we can use that helps express the different ideas and the different concepts in the most neutral fashion.
I don't know, I'll have to get back to you on that one. I don't know. I mean, I think the way it's set up here is,
We feel comfortable
Fine,
with
yeah.
that. Okay, good.
yeah.
Just want to make this comment. Frankly, none of us are here to advocate for an option. We are all here to bring perspective to look at all options in an open mind.
I
So
understand,
the
I'm giving feedback
idea-
on what I was told.
But the idea is that we're concerned that one version does not look good is not something we should be discussing. What we're looking at is that I see differences between all the plans. And I will formulate an opinion based on those differences that I think might be beneficial. But the point here isn't for us to advocate for plans, is to look at all.
I'm not advocating, I'm giving feedback of what the businesses said.
You
So there's
said,
a difference.
said, this does not
Did I-
make, yes.
I
you
didn't say
did.
I felt that way. I said I'm getting feedback from the businesses.
You said, this plan doesn't make the 4-lane plan
So
look
what?
good.
We're supposed to talk about all the plans. And it doesn't
But-
make the 4-lane plan look good. It doesn't, I
But
never
so
said
we
to you that
accept that.
I want the 4-lane plan, did
And
I?
We accept.
We accept
just-
what?
We accept that maybe the 4-lane plan doesn't work good in one sense, or it does work well in another sense. You just
Kevin,
expect to be
I'm here as a
open-minded.
business representative. It's
Yeah.
not about my mind. It's
It
what the
is.
businesses are thinking,
Right.
and I'm relaying that.
I'm telling you that our purpose here today.
I
for
understand
this
what our
meeting
purpose is.
Is to bring your perspective in an open way. So we want to look at all the.
And how did we
I
not?
think, yeah.
How did I
think-
not?
How did I not, Kevin?
Yeah.
Tell
I
me what
think-
words I said that I'm not.
I think that we're.
We got it.
Okay. I think what we're trying to do is get each different aspects objectively.
Yeah.
So, and as it relates to each different plan. So I think that the comments are, I think that's fine.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I think we're, we're talking about each item, like in the matrix, like safety and conflict. It's like, that's it, and how it relates to each different plan. So I don't think we're talking about like broadly one plan in and of itself. So I think what they're asking for is to clarify those, to make sure that
Very good.
they're accurate. So I think what we need to do is, if we use this, is to go through each one of them to make sure the language is correct.
Yes.
In the way,
Yeah.
and the way that it's scored is accurate for each of the plans.
Yeah, I will note, like, we've had several discussions on this and we've incorporated all of the feedback that we've gotten. So there has not been specific feedback that we've gotten that collectively the group has said, no.
Right.
Don't incorporate that.
Yeah, I think the intention was for us to go through each of these together.
Right.
As a group and look at each of them. It's a daunting task for a 16-member committee, but to go through each one of them to make sure that they're accurate, so that they reflect our perspective.
And I acknowledge that there's change, like that looks so much better to me
I
than
agree.
-1 or -2 and 0. So yes, that does look better. So that's why we're fine with having it on the side. To be honest with you, people just don't read that much. So I don't know how necessary that is to have for the entire public, but to have it for people asking
Like,
for more
everybody
information
says,
is perfectly fine.
So I guess my question is then, for informational purposes, does it continue to make sense to come up with one finalized version of that matrix? And if so, because I actually heard a couple different perspectives around the table, so I heard that people like the -2 to 2, and I've heard that other people like 1 through 5. I heard both.
I'm saying.
Who likes
Yeah.
Not from you, but from other people at the table, I heard that they preferred the -2 to 2, so if it is something we're gonna continue working on, I think we have to make a decision. If it's not something we're gonna continue working on, it's probably not worth it to differentiate between the two.
Is it within the purview of the mission of this committee to have the key topics available for public consumption? But when we have to present turn over everything to the select board, that we include the matrix?
So I think,
Or is that disingenuous to the
so I think
public?
everything we do gets to be in public, right? So
Right,
this is a
right,
public
right.
record, everyone, you know.
I feel like this is very valuable to the
Yeah.
select board if we can come up
I
with
think
a
the
way
goal
to
is to
make it-
package it for the public and for the select board.
Much more public.
And I think, that's trying, like, anyone can form opinions on any iteration we've talked about, because it's all happening in public. But I think the goal is to package it to the point where we feel comfortable getting input from the public, getting some survey results, and then getting it packaged for the select board. So the matrix would be part, I guess the question is, if the matrix is part of the packaging, we should continue working on it.
Yeah.
If the matrix isn't part of the packaging, then it doesn't make sense to deal with this conflict that I'm hearing, that there's two different ways of looking at this.
Okay, since this is the new version of it, is it possible to send it to us, give us time with it, and then the next meeting we decide? Okay.
Because I think that it is a good thing to have for the select board, like,
Right.
because they
Yeah.
are gonna want more detail than the general. I'm
If
not
that
saying everyone in the
informs
general
this.
public, but some people in the general public might not need all that information.
I
But
think,
this to me is like a summary of that.
Right.
Like this is,
Like
a
a
cleaner,
summary.
easier way of
Good
reading it.
Yes.
And if you add on the things that are missing, that's fine, like, that's what I'm saying, so when I'm talking about like, if the businesses just do that, they're gonna get upset, and this is me relaying it to you, where this, to me, is not threatening.
Right.
And I think that this is a very fair assumption of what's going to go on,
Yes.
so.
So what I'm hearing is, I will send this around, I'll post the old one as well, so you can see both next to each other, and then the next time we discuss, we can figure out which one we want to put as part of that packaging, not necessarily for the public information session, but for the select board to help inform their decision making.
But if this public is, information had, where it's gonna be interactive, right? Have we decided that?
So it isn't on the agenda for today, the
Oh,
last,
okay,
but I will say
sorry.
the last time we met, I think we talked about having a presentation and then a question and answer period that would be likely facilitated.
Okay,
So
so if someone at the question and answer wants some more details, then
Yeah.
we can present them.
Yep.
Okay.
exactly.
One note about the key topics guide is one of the big goals of it, and the way that I designed it is for brevity. So the more information we add, I fear the more overwhelming the sheet becomes, and thus the less easy, it decreases the ability for people to digest the information quickly and discourages them to potentially read it. So we selected the key topics that we did because those are the hot topics that we have heard, feedback in both ways about. So
So public
I
art
just
was more
wanted to-
important
Than
than
safety?
Yeah,
safety
that
with
doesn't
the
make
feedback.
Like I would,
placemaking specifically. So people talking about,
I think there isn't a lot of confusion about what alternative would provide safety benefits. Whereas there seemed to be confusion about can all the alternatives accommodate placemaking? Like, we kept hearing confusion about certain topics.
right,
safety.
it's a base assumption
Right.
that everyone
This was
is
where at the harvest fair? Or?
throughout all of
Oh, through like
all
before
of
we
the-
even came.
Through the
all of-
matrix
yep, all
discussion.
of the
And like drainage
the public
improvements, is that able to be
Right.
accommodated in every option?
Right.
Not
That
that
has,
it's more
that
important.
question specifically come up.
I think like maybe the one major thing that's missing is cost.
And
Right.
and safety.
But she's like safety, everyone says it.
Safety
Why
is-
would it necessarily-
there have transparently, there have been.
Negative safety because it's not.
No, and I
So
understand
so that would be a
that.
huge
Right.
negative overarching opinion of, not opinion.
Well, I get that, but it
yeah.
is what it is, like, we have to be transparent, but what I'm saying here is like, maybe. I didn't know that people were asking about public art. Is basically
Well,
what-
placemaking.
placemaking.
Yeah, I think public art's.
Yeah,
not
we
the right
updated it, so
priority.
it's not just about public art. That was a very big topic during specifically the walking tours and the 2024 Harvest Fair, because people were commenting on the new mural that went up and like they were specifically asking, and the gallery that's gonna happen along I forget the bar. Thank you. I was thinking about the restaurant that's there. But that was a big topic of discussion because of these.
What
public
about
art
this year's
updates.
harvest fair?
So,
Which is more current.
so again, last year's Harvest Fair and then all of the events that we did in January, February of this year.
So
Yeah.
shouldn't we base on what the most important things were? Shouldn't we base it on the more current? Or even take the two of them and combine them or so, you know what I mean?
Well,
Like, we never even saw the results of the harvest fair from 2025. Like, we don't have those. So what I'm saying is that's a little bit more current.
so I do believe that we did provide, did we
I don't
provide
think
the
it made
committee with
it
the
to a-
recaps?
Yeah,
With
we
the document
have
recaps?
it just wasn't presented yet.
Okay, so we actually have recap documents of every engagement event that we have done to date. So we can, I think I have not, my team has not wrapped up the Harvest Fair one, just because we haven't been sharing them, so we can do that and then present them.
Yeah, because then maybe, who knows, maybe like outdoor dining is not as important for that one, and if you combine them together, like, you know what I mean, like take the last year's harvest fair, this year's harvest fair, and maybe do like an average, or.
So, yeah, I mean, we
Well,
can.
'cause you don't wanna
I think the
disregard
question is,
what's
what do you wanna put, if you're doing a one pager
Right,
and you have
what-
limited space, what goes on that one pager? I
Yeah.
think when we get all the items, we can figure out what goes on that one
I
pager.
think cost is a fair call out, and it's actually something that Margot and I have also talked about, actually just talked about like just this week. One of the concerns with cost transparently is what you're estimating for
Thinking
today.
that there's an option that's very low
Right.
cost when all of the options are very high cost, so,
So,
yeah.
so we'll just need to figure out if that's what something we want to add. We just need to figure out how to clearly articulate that so that it's not, so that it can grow with the project and shift as needed depending on when costs are actually starting to.
Yeah,
to
we
go
could
into
either,
effect.
like, right now, we have estimates of X million dollars per alternative, but Cassandra was suggesting potentially like 4-lane is a base cost, and then the other alternatives are like plus 15%, plus 8%. To have it be relative versus
Right.
specific
Okay.
numbers.
Right.
People do ask about the cost a lot.
All the time.
But I think to be like fully transparent, the project that we had programmed, which was only gonna go from Maple to Pickering, was an estimated in 2020 dollars to be $4.5 million. And that wasn't touching anything in the downtown quarter that was already modified. And that wasn't with the new drainage issues that we now have in the town because of some of these short duration, high intensity events. So 4.5 million in 2020 dollars is, significantly more in 2025. So I guess like it's hard because, and this is the world I work in, so I work in construction and we do big dollar projects. So when I say 4 point, like compared to like a large, we're doing a sewer project that's more than that, right? So it's like in the world of infrastructure improvements, it's not, it doesn't seem outsized for the scope of the project. But I think for people on the outside looking in who pave their driveways, they think like, how could this possibly cost in the millions or tens of millions of dollars? And so I think that's where I think the context is difficult, because if you say to somebody, and we have financial estimates up next, so that's like a great segue. But if you say to somebody that this is a $10 million project, they're like, well, we don't want to do it. And it's like, well, there are you can't not do projects. Like we have to deal with drainage infrastructure. We have to deal with roadway infrastructure. We have to deal with septic. We have to deal with ADA compliance. So it's sort of like, I think sometimes there's a belief that there's like a $0 alternative, and there's always a consequence for not expending those funds.
We wanna wrap up the matrix
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah, we will,
So I think
so we'll get that back, the matrix back, and we'll look at it. We're gonna go through each of those items.
So we'll have it in
To get
advance.
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which one?
if we
Uh,
can get it sooner than later, just because
Yeah.
the year is really hard. for me
Yeah.
to go through stuff.
Yeah.
They're gonna decide next time.
And I think it's coming out because you have new materials that weren't released today, so the matrix is part of that material package. that
It
we
will
had.
be, yes. Yeah, I got it this morning and I wasn't able to get it
So I
out.
can
So
get
I'll be
that
sending
too.
that out today. We can
Right.
talk about it next.
And we can make a decision. on
And-
the
Yeah, I will say
numbers
there's
and-
no change to the content of the matrix. It's simply everything that was -2 is now 1, and everything that was 2 is now 5. Like they've all just been shifted up numerically, so.
Right, thank you. Okay, and the next agenda item is to update on financial estimates.
Okay. Great.
Who's gonna?
You want me to-
Do you want to pull up the items? And again, I do want to contextualize it because I've heard people say, well, can we just do what we were planning on 2020, as if that project was a chief project, and it was not. It was a smaller scope project. And it was significantly, a significant expense. So the most minimal changes that we could, make, or meeting that particular expectation still had a fairly significant cost, because a lot of the cost is happening. There's a lot of different reasons. A lot of it's happening below the surface, so it's happening to subsurface systems that are in place. The second reason is because it is in the downtown, we will likely be doing the vast majority of that construction in the evening hours, which there's a premium to be paid for having overnight construction versus daytime construction. And that's not even just like, there's obviously a business consideration, but there's simply just a traffic consideration, right? When you're doing paving work, sidewalk work, everything else. So there are some fairly significant challenges, and the physical location of the town's right of way abutting everybody's property makes it challenging because we have very little space to occupy. We don't have space to stage equipment on site. We don't have space to stage materials on site. So that corridor does provide a significant amount of challenges for the volume of work that we're doing. So I just wanted to set that down as like a base concern. And I will send this out as well.
Great. Okay, so we have, I cannot stress enough that these are order of magnitude estimates. But we kind of split each alternative up into broad categories to give a better sense of how much each element costs. So this is the 4-lane alternative. Just general assumptions, all of the pricing is based on public information that Mass DOT, provides on their website. We used it for the district that Needham is in for the last 12 months of construction pricing. We assume construction would take place in 2028 and have a 5% inflation annually. So just going through the categories, roadway work would include any work to the pavement within the curb lines. So for the 4-lane alternative, that's about 1.8 million. We assumed, just in terms of the type of pavement work that's being done, the majority of the project would be mill and overlay, where they mill 2 inches of pavement off and then repave. But that there would be some degree of patching, just given the existing condition of the road. To Karis's point, we assume both the roadway and the sidewalk work would be done overnight, so we added a 15% increase in cost for that requirement. Sidewalk work would be reconstructing all of the sidewalks and driveway aprons within the project limits for the 4-lane alternative, which again excludes that center block. For the 4-lane, that's about 1.6 million. All of the alternatives include replacing all of the parking meters, which Karis or Tyler can
The
chime in
current
on.
parking meter that I know the original downtown committee so like strategically picked the aesthetics of. They are no longer, the company has gone out of business. So we will be looking at, in the short term, we've stocked up on heads and we have purchased a machine so we can recalibrate them. But in the long term, they will need replacing regardless.
And this is, I know Justin's not here tonight, but there was like a separate grant for parking meter replacement. Is that connected to this at all?
I think it's the parking meter app.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was like
so
coming
the
from
town is
Point
looking
Staff.
on implementing an app. Right now, we were gonna do it in conjunction, so we will
Okay.
not discriminate against the change users, but again, that would be something that would be
Okay, I just wasn't sure if that was a
further
cost out of this or a cost out of.
fleshed out. It was out of the grant.
Okay.
It would happen before the implementation of this project.
That should be in place by the spring.
Well, in the scheme of thing, that's only $70,000.
Yeah.
Streetscape improvements for all of the options. This is very conceptual, given that we're not showing any streetscape improvements. The majority of the cost for the 4-lane alternative is new pedestrian scale lighting. We would also infill some of the street trees. And then we had some stipend for other amenities like benches, bike racks, etc. So that's about 1.45.
Question, since you mentioned about the light, so you're saying that part of the streetscape would be to remove all the lights that were only installed in 2017 or 18, pedestrian style
It
lights?
could be, it's not necessary. It's not necessary. I think you're assuming what could happen, right? So
This is
in this
incredibly
particular
conservative.
case,
Yeah.
we're talking about not modifying anything in the inner corridor, so we wouldn't be removing any of the lights that were installed.
Both streetlights and signal lights.
There might be a slight modification of the signal lights.
So
when it
signals
comes to
are
slip
under a
lane.
different category.
But this is like pedestrian scale lighting. And remember, we didn't add any pedestrian scale lighting to the rest of the corridor in the, we didn't add pedestrian scale lighting to the entirety of Great Plain Avenue. Or upgraded, I should say.
Utility upgrades, a good chunk of that is increasing the pipe size of the main drainage line going down Great Plain Avenue. We're assuming a 24-inch main line. To be conservative, we assumed all of the catch basins along the curb line and all the manholes would also be replaced. Other utilities within the project limits like sewer would just be adjusted as needed. These other costs, we have a allocation for police officers during construction as well as temporary traffic control measures. These are pretty standard on the higher end percentages, just given it's a very crowded area. We want to make sure there's no confusion during construction. Traffic signal upgrades are minimal in this alternative. We just assumed the mast arm on the slip lane island would need to be relocated. So that would be the only signal change. And then we also, just for comprehensiveness, also included the cost of having a resident engineer out there overseeing the contractor throughout construction. So the subtotal without any additions is about 8.9 million. Then we add the inflation, which is 1.4. And then we have a 20% contingency, which is standard for, you know, this early on in the design process, which is about 2 million. So that brings us up to 12.4 for the 4 lane. Any questions before I keep moving? I'll keep bombarding you with numbers. Okay, so next is the hybrid alternative. Just gonna put them side by side for comparison. So you can see the hybrid roadway cost is slightly higher than the 4-lane, even though the pavement width is narrowed in some sections because we're including that center block. There is more pavement work to be done. Similarly, there is more sidewalk work to be done, so that increases from about 1.6 to 1.85. Not only are we doing that center block, but the sidewalks are wider in other locations. Parking meters and signage are unchanged. Streetscape improvements are, we have a higher allotment for the hybrid alternative, assuming we'd have more benches, more trees. The existing trees likely wouldn't be retained, so they would be all new trees, etc. Utility upgrades slightly higher because we are including that center block. And then we're assuming because it's a larger project area, traffic or construction would take slightly longer. So there could be a higher amount of traffic control officers, etc. So that's slightly higher as well. Traffic signal upgrades, because we're affecting more of the mast arms, that cost is higher. And then the construction oversight is the same. Yeah, so that is 15.3 for the hybrid alternative.
For the 4-lane to the 2-lane, the sidewalk part, that seems weird, right? Because there's really not that much sidewalk work. Is it all the bump outs that are that base cost of the?
So it's all, aside from that core block, all of the sidewalks would be reconstructed to be ADA compliant, and then it does include all of the bump out
So even if
areas.
they're not wider, you're still redoing it.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Because right now they don't meet so one of the struggles we have with the project is that you have to be able to have the right grading, and because the doorsteps of all the businesses go right up against the building, you have,
Kind of.
yes, you do have a little but where the threshold of your building is, right? So you have to meet that grade, and then you have to meet the grade of the curb. And so the more sidewalk that you have to make that pitch, the easier it is for you to do that. So there's some advantages to widening the sidewalk from some sidewalk work perspective.
And then I'm just gonna compare the hybrid and the 2-lane. I guess punchline is they're very similar. The 2-lane is 15.4 versus 15.3 for the hybrid. The main difference is there is a lower pavement cost for the 2-lane because there is less pavement and there's a higher sidewalk. Why is the sidewalk lower? Those should be comparable. I think we had higher streetscape improvements. So we subtracted the area anticipated for streetscape improvements from the sidewalk area, so we weren't double counting. So we assumed the sidewalk width that was clear in both options would be the same, but then there would be a wider streetscape portion in the 2-lane. So that is the main difference. Again, 15.3 versus
Why is the
15.4.
traffic signal lower?
Probably because there are fewer turn lanes and they don't need that cost for the turn lane.
Yeah. If there was a bike lane on the sidewalk in either of these alternatives, would that be an additional cost? Would it be within the side, would be regular?
Yeah, it would just, I mean, depending on the material, it would be a comparable cost. Yeah.
Can you go over again why, if you roll up to the top, I'm still confused why on the 2-lane, the roadway to the sidewalk cheaper.
So the roadway is cheaper because there is less pavement in the 2-lane
Okay.
versus the hybrid. And then the sidewalk is cheaper because it's just an assumption we made. We allocated more of that cost to streetscape improvements in the 2-lane. But overall, if you look at sidewalk plus streetscape, it's more expensive in the 2-lane versus the hybrid.
If you're planting a tree, you're not putting the sidewalk.
Right, yeah, if there's a tree there, then it's not sidewalk, you're calculating for the sidewalk.
Yeah. So.
We're gonna send us these so we can look at them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Where's the money coming from?
So, this is where it makes the cost conversation complicated, and it's even more complicated because of what's happening at the federal level right now. So the funds from chapter 90 had been stored up by the town for over a decade in order to pay for the streetscape improvements. But because of some of the other projects in town that have taken precedent, some of those chapter 90 funds have been used for other roadway improvements, like Mark Tree Road, which is currently under design. So the town receives a little over $1 million a year, and now we're getting supplemental funds from the millionaire's tax that do go towards roadway improvements. Could be used to pay for this, and we're gonna be sitting down and looking at those allocations. There's also new grant programming that just came out, and it literally opened up 3 days
2 weeks
ago. That may be available, will be available to help supplement this, at approximately $1 million per year. That's allocated by the state under the Complete Streets program. They've just significantly enhanced the amount of money coming through that program. And the amount of time that they'll let you get it. So before you had to wait 4 years to apply, now every year you can apply for that $1 million grant.
And that would be for any of them, any of the.
All three would
All
work.
three.
Yeah, they all meet, all three of them in a broad brush meet the goal of trying to accommodate all modalities with varying degrees, right? Each one of them makes improvements that are better for pedestrians, that are better for motorists, over the current condition, which is what you need in order to apply. What I will say is that at the federal level, there were more grant opportunities, and right now, I think regardless of how we design it, there are less opportunities available for the community to get from a competitive perspective. And then we had talked about this, I think closer to town meeting. The entire inner corridor was done without a town meeting vote. So it was all done through chapter 90 resources, which are allocated to the town and through the town manager, the select board. Chapter 90 was allocated towards this corridor. I think one of the things we talked about, I think regardless of what alternative we pick, is that there will be some money, and we have a capital item that's in the request that will be coming from the town, so that way a vote can happen at town meeting. Because I think from both it's my perspective, but I think from both funding, that it's the town putting a commitment towards its project, but also just having that vote at town meeting is really helpful. We get a lot of phone calls about projects. I'll use the Common as a great example. Well, people will call us and they'll be like, I never heard of this project. What do you mean it's happening? And we can then say, like, not only is it a project that we put forward and we have public engagement on, but also it went through a voting process. And I think that really does help to help people understand where the project came from and who it was approved by. So I think those are the three options. We're going to be meeting in the next couple of weeks to look at our chapter 90 balances, look at how many years it would take in order to accrue those balances, what funding we might want to request as part of the town's capital process, and then what external funding sources are available. Right now, the funding sources that I'm talking about don't have requirements as far as bike lanes go or anything else. So, you know, we would be looking at sources that don't require that, right of way, but they may be, they are. Right now, Complete Streets isn't competitive and they keep saying it's not gonna be competitive, but I'm really skeptical how they're gonna give $1 million out to every town. And if they become competitive, you know, projects that typically are seen as more maintenance, right? They are more about addressing existing problems, tend to be ranked lower, and projects that tend to be more innovative tend to be ranked higher. That's just how it ends up freaking out. So
There's 2 points on one is that, you know, I think the reality for projects like that, where the state has said they're giving money, is, you know, they know that a lot of communities will not have projects that won't be ready, right? That's how we do well in schools, because we have projects that are ready. So I think, you know, it sounds like, yes, you're right, they're not gonna give 50 towns, but if we're up there and early in the cycle, I would imagine we would do well. The second point is just to confirm what you said. So from a town meeting perspective, the chapter 90 was discussed, so the town meeting heard some time ago that you were putting money aside for this project. That's not new news to them. You're just coming back and saying, now we're ready to spend, here's where it's coming from.
yes, and chapter 90 was always, they allocate chapter 90 on a blanket basis,
Yeah.
and so
But
we have
the
put
select-
in the
yeah,
narrative.
select board says,
Correct.
this is what it's coming for. So you were reminding them, that nobody will remember, but just the point is, this isn't something new. The select board and planning process has been anticipating doing this for some time. Now we're coming to you, town meeting, to say, we're ready to go.
Yeah, and I think if there's a nominal portion that is coming from another funding source that is voted on, I think that that might help provide clarity that that is exactly the direction that's being endorsed.
Okay, I just want to clarify, this isn't going to impact business owners or residents in terms of the cost. Is any of this taxes, and is any of this gonna fall back onto us?
So, there's no Prop 2.5 override that is anticipated as part of this project, so it wouldn't have a direct impact. It's coming from the tax levy. Things like Complete Streets or other funding sources, the taxes go to the state and the state will spend them one way or the other. You're not gonna get the money back if we don't pursue those
Right, but our
resources.
taxes won't be increased.
Your taxes are increased based on the value of the property and,
This project doesn't
you have to vote in order
I'm saying this
to,
project doesn't have any
This
direct
project-
impact on our taxes.
the project will not have a Prop 2.5 override that would increase your taxes.
Big power.
I just wanna,
Comes from the tax base, so it's just hard for me to say, yeah.
I just wanna highlight MassWorks as another potential, external funding source that's geared a lot towards project that's for economic development and often downtown projects, and that's up to $5 million. So.
One of the good things that, with the changes to the programs is that, they're making it easier to put applications in, and then they match those to grant programs that are appropriate for the project. So we don't necessarily have to be as, we can allow them to do that work to match it to the programs that will be. So that whether that's the, green infrastructure, or the roadway improvements, the economic development aspect, so that we create a funding stack.
So this sounds like there's a lot of opportunity here for grants, which is great. Do we have a sense, donate, do we have a sense if this is gonna be like 5% of the total cost is gonna be covered, or like 80% of the total cost is gonna be covered? Do we have,
I mean, I think we're
A
hoping 2
range.
million will be covered by the new Complete Streets program. For
by that
example.
grant alone, for
Yeah.
example? Okay, okay.
And then other funding sources could be added on to.
Yeah, I can certainly get the chapter 90 balance that we currently have with what we have allocated towards the,
They've got it covered.
Yeah, right, that's what I was.
Yeah.
it
The
sounded
current,
really- yeah,
the current
million
items.
there.
Mark Tree, and I think there's one other that we're paying out of chapter 90. I can show where the balance is now. I can show what we're anticipating. Like I said, the millionaire's tax is one of the funding sources now for roads, which has had, we've been receiving more in chapter 90 allocation than we had anticipated because of the millionaire's tax.
How many years out?
Listen for that.
So they had asked as far as the cost estimated goes, right? I think we were talking, and so I had sort of indicated, I thought 2028 was the earliest possible time I could possibly envision the project happening. But I don't know if that's that's like the earliest time, not necessarily the real time. So that's the number I had them put in, because obviously, I mean, we've seen it in all the projects we do. When projects get delayed a year, there's an inflation factor that comes in. So, we just sort of went through, like, if all the stars align and everyone's in agreement, this spring on what direction to design, how long the design process will take, how long, lining up grants and everything else would take, that would be the earliest we saw the project starting.
Yeah, and I'll say we initially had it 2030 and pulling it up 2 years decreased $1 million from the cost, so definitely time is money.
And that's why I say when the project cost that we had for the existing beta design isn't as far off as where we would have been just based on inflation from that design for the
Yeah.
3-lane alternative, 4-lane alternative.
Okay. Alright. Everyone satisfied with the? Okay. Thank you for that. That's very helpful. So the next one
Is there any opportunity to make a public comment?
There's not. So the next.
How would I address a letter to you then?
We have an email. Yeah, there's an email. It's enc@needham.gov.
Needham
Needham.gov.
It's on the project.
Thank you.
It's on the project website. That's a new email that will come and everyone here will get a copy of it. So thank you. And the next agenda item is to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Eileen Baker?
Wait, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yes, thank you.
So yeah. Tim Mulder, aye. Lisa Alcog?
Aye.
Paul Good? Aye. Michael Myers? Aye. Liz Hay? Paul Jacobson? Kevin Keane? Aye. Adrian Newton?
Aye.
Diane Nanny?
Aye.
Diana.
Raise your hand.
And Kara Flores. Meeting.
Watch your hand.